I put in my website here, prihandoro.rf.gd. Have a look by yourself. Yeah, so I'm specialized on corpus linguistics. So corpus linguistics is basically, how do I say? So to put it simply, corpus linguistics is the big data of linguistics. Okay, it's a relatively new branches of linguistics. Yeah, I professionally offer various services for different institutions, and also I develop computational linguistic systems and resources. So I develop some software for language processing. I'm also a reviewer in some academic journal, and if you want to contact me, the quickest way is via this email. Yeah, because if you do it via different methods like WhatsApp, phone, SMS, I'm not pretty responsive, but this one I'm pretty responsive on email. So if you do have some emergencies and wanted to contact me, please reach me via this email. Okay. And I also have a YouTube channels where I upload my tutorials that I created. So if you type Indonesia Corpus Lab on YouTube, Indonesia Corpus Lab, and yeah, here we go, just on the top. And on the playlist, if you go to playlist, you can see various playlists of my tutorials. So for instance, if you're interested in corpus linguistics, well, most of them are in Indonesian. There's a little bit of playlist in English, like for instance, this one, Foundation of Corpus Linguistics, only 4, I think. Langsbox tutorial. So Langsbox is a kind of program. I don't develop this program. This is a corpus linguistics program. Yeah, I have 8. I think I have 8 tutorials for this one. Yeah. So that's it about myself, and yeah, translation is one of my interest. Okay, but my specialization is corpus linguistics. So feel free to ask me questions on both. And now, before we go further, it is quite essential that you join Google Classroom. So I think we can do it now. So you can see my screen. If you go to Google Classroom, you can join Google Classroom using this code. But unfortunately, I think you won't be able to use your Undip email. So use your private Gmail account to join. Okay, and yeah, once you join, you'll be able to see the materials that I uploaded to classwork. Like for instance, on today's meeting, this is what we are going to do. Yeah, like this. Yeah, and I usually, hang on, I usually add materials here. So for instance, I will add a material here, and you'll be seeing that on your stream. And that's the same for other classes that I teach, like, yeah, final project, corpus linguistic, basic translation, etc. So in undergraduate level, I teach like 3 classes of translation. And I think you are also the same students joining me for the materials development for language teaching later today. So yeah, please join Google Classroom now. I will wait, and yeah, just shout if you manage to join Google Classroom. Here's the code. I'm going to share it. Not materials development, but methods for learning translation. Going to copy this onto the chat room. Hang on, that seems weird. This one is better. And in case you feel more comfortable with clicking just the link, here comes the link. Okay, any question about joining Google Classroom, or is there anyone having difficulties in joining Google Classroom? You can share your screen here and perhaps I can help. One person managed to join. Who is this? The name seems to be different.
Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon. Anicia, yeah, that's what it says on your team.
Yes.
Yeah. So congratulations. Anicia, can you share your screen? I will stop sharing my screen. Everyone else, yeah. Now we are going to see Anicia's screen.
Okay, sir. Give me a second.
No worries.
Hello, sir. Hello.
So we are making a progress here. I see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 students have already joined. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, 7 students. So that means one more student to join. I was informed that there are 8 students in this class.
Yes, sir. 8 students.
Right, so we have 7 students here in Teams, and we have 7 students in my Google Classroom account. So the amount seems to be right. Only 1 student is missing, and I believe he or she is not present yet. Yeah. So I'll reshare my screen. So if you go to classwork, hang on, I think I haven't shared my screen. Please stand by. You're seeing my background, but the class will be there in just 1 second. There you go. So here is the visualization of Google Classroom methods for learning translation. Here's the stream, but that's not what you should attend to. You should attend to classwork. Okay, so if you go to about this class, midterm to final term, yeah, click on this, and you're going to see some materials here. Yeah. And the first material that you have to open, that you better open, is about this class. Here, so we have discussed this. I have introduced myself. This is my website. I have mentioned to you the quickest way to inform me is not via WhatsApp, the phone, SMS, but via email. And yeah, the next one that I need to tell you is about the references. So there are 2 references that we are going to use in this class for the remaining of the meetings. And some chapters will be distributed for students. So you are going to do a 50 minutes presentation per group. So for each meeting, except today, you are going to do a presentation. And here's the topics. I divided the topics into 2. The first one is the foundations. So foundations means like this is the underlying theories, not theories exactly, but the underlying knowledge for the translation. Okay, and this is basically the subsequent materials which have been taught by Pak Mualim and Dr. Mualimin previously from the beginning to midterm. Okay, so we are going to discuss cohesion in translation, pragmatics in translation, translation and discourse perspective, translation and language sexism. Okay, there are 2 references, one in English and one in Indonesian. So yeah, feel free to get this reference in many different ways that you can. Okay. Second one is about applications. Yeah, while foundations refer to the underlying knowledge, applications refer to how you apply the knowledge. Okay, so how you apply the strategies, how you apply the theories. Yeah, and It also covers presentations, group presentations, yeah, with three themes, three topics: translations of proverbs, translation of vocabulary list, translation process, and quality. So these are the topics of the presentations that you need to do. So you're going to do 50 to 60 minutes presentation. Then after that, we are going to discuss until the end of each meeting. And if you click on this distribution, you're going to be redirected to this page. Today is meeting 9. Okay, next week is meeting 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. And then this is the topic MB here. You see the references MB. MB refers to this Manavaker. Okay. And these are the presenters that I have randomly assigned on the basis of the presence list that I have from CN, from the system. Okay, so for instance, you might be wondering what topic you should present. Yeah. So, for example, Stella is presenting cohesion and translation, and also here application thesis presentation. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, feel free to browse the materials. Yeah. One more thing is about the final term is individual essay, but I haven't written the instructions in detail. That's to be determined later. Okay. Perhaps next week or the next 2 weeks, I will provide a link or just put more details about this. Right, is there any questions?
No, sir. Thank you so much. Quite clear.
Well, actually, I need to make sure that I already joined Google Classroom successfully. So would you please anyone tell me that I joined?
Sure.
This
So
is in.
this is the list of the students. Are you in?
Yeah, I'm already here. So.
What's your name? Sorry.
Hand.
Hand Farouk. Okay, good.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. Yeah.
No worries. As for the application here, so if you just see this, perhaps it's not quite visible, but this has the title and also the link. Okay, so for instance, yeah, an analysis of role of micro and macro levels in rendering some standard Arabic proverbs into English. So here you have the link. Okay, so if you just copy paste this, yeah, onto your browser, you'll be redirected into the thesis. Okay. And this is a group presentation, so you do it in group. It's quite lengthy, but yeah, I believe that this is the best way to prepare you to write an academic project later. Let's close this. Right, there's no question for me? If there is no question, I'd like to ask you a question. It's not something very heavy, but this is about the language of delivery. So I speak some languages, yeah, Indonesian, English, Korean, a little bit of Korean, yeah, Japanese, and perhaps we share the same language, okay? So do you mind if I deliver this class in English or do you prefer me to deliver this class in different languages? I can only speak 3, yes. So other than English, I speak Japanese, Indonesian, well, Korean as well, a little bit of Korean.
Hello, but actually, most of us speak English. Since we're already from different countries, different cultures, so mainly we communicate in English.
So are we okay that this class is delivered in English?
Yes, please. Actually,
Okay.
we have some Indonesian friends. Some of us can speak Indonesian, but some cannot speak Indonesian as well. So it would be better if we communicate in English, please.
All right. Noted. We will deliver this class in English.
Thank you so much.
But if you want to communicate with me via email, or let's say you want to ask something and perhaps it's quite difficult to express it in English, and you're more comfortable in expressing the questions in other languages that I can understand, like Indonesian, Javanese, or Korean, please do. But yeah, only in the language or languages that I can understand.
Yes, thank you so much. But yeah, thank you.
No worries. All right, if there is no more question, yeah, let's go to the core of today's meeting. So if you see the, hang on, not this one. Sorry, apologize. Let me deal with this first. This. Yeah, so if you see the topics or the themes of this class, yeah, they don't reflect something practical. Well, translation process and quality a little bit, yeah. So mostly they are translation studies, which you need as an academia, yeah. But for some reasons, I believe that perhaps some of you are practical translators, yeah. So practical translators, they translate professionally. Okay, so you translate something and you don't get paid. Yeah, you don't need to explain. Very rarely, you need to explain theoretical details about translation, which we do in this class because this is a master class. Okay, so in this session, yeah, just in one session, just in one meeting, I'm going to share practical aspect of translation, which is using CAT tools. Yeah. Has anyone used any CAT tools before? I take it as no. Or yes?
No, we didn't.
No?
Actually,
Okay.
I worked as a translator, but never got the chance to work using CAT tools.
Yeah. So I myself is also a professional translator. Yeah. So I use CAT tools. CAT tools is simply a software. Yeah. CAT refers to computer assisted tool. So from the abbreviation, yeah, it stands computer assisted. So it assists you. It doesn't make a decision. So it informs you, yeah, of several alternatives. Yeah, for instance, if you type something in the source language, it's going to provide you with some suggestions. So this is pretty much like a writing assistant program. So if you, so for instance, let's use this, okay? Right, so I write here my book. This, yes. Well, this one doesn't have any writing assistant programming, so let's just start from Microsoft Word. I believe that everyone is familiar with Microsoft Word or other text processor. All right, just use the instant one. Grammarly, this is quite a web-based application, a web-based software, which I think most people are familiar with. Okay, so for instance, you write something. Let me open an already written document. So here you see the suggestions. Okay, so cat tool in some ways is similar to Grammarly. Okay, it gives you suggestion, but it doesn't make a decision for you. You have to decide by yourself. For instance, I write prior to here, and the suggestion from Grammarly is changing this to before. I can either follow this, or I can just ignore it. So the decision is totally on my hand. It's not like Google Translate. So if you Google Translate and you choose to translate from Indonesian, let's say English, okay? And let's just copy paste the this sentence. So the computer made the decision for you. It made the decision for you in just split seconds, okay? Even though you can edit it, of course, but it made the decision earlier, yeah, automatically. But with cat tools, you have to do it manually. You have to decide whether you take the suggestion or you decide to leave it. Go back to classwork, and you just simply need to click on this. I'm going to give you the YouTube link just in case you're not comfortable. So here's the YouTube link actually. If you're not comfortable watching this via Google Classroom interface, you can also do it via YouTube. Okay, going to chat room. Right, just checking. Is the voice from my computer audible? Is the voice from my computer audible?
No, we can't hear it.
Okay, hang on. I will reshare. And this time, I must have forgotten to include the computer sound. So let's do this. Okay, include computer sound.
What is machine translation? So let's have a little bit of a look at machine translation, which is...
Is the voice audible from my computer?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to start from the beginning. Yeah, please enjoy the video.
Ciao, I'm Massimo from STL, and today I'm here to talk about CAT tools. What does the acronym CAT stand for? CAT stands for Computer Assisted Translation. And there's actually different explanation for what it actually means. Some people say computer aided translation, but I think if you check out on Wikipedia, that's what you'll find. Let's carry on. What is a CAT tool? It's a software used by translators and linguists. It does different things. So first of all, it's there to support the translation process. And it actually allows you to edit, create, and store, manage a translation. So it does actually quite a lot of different things. And today we're going to look a bit more in all the things that a cat tool does. So I'm going to tick this box here. But before we carry on, I think what a cat tool is not. And I think one of the key things to bear in mind, a cat tool is not something that is going to translate for you. It's not a machine translation. So you still have to do your own translation, I'm afraid. It will help you, but it doesn't do all the work, which is great because we'll continue to need lots and lots of translation to deal with a huge amount of content. Let's continue on what are the core components of a cat tool. What's inside a cat tool? Lots of different things. So translation memory. This is one of the key essential components of a cat tool. And actually it's a technology that has been around for over 30 years. If you want to find out more, there's lots of information that you can find online. It's actually really old technology that has evolved over quite a long time. And that's kind of at the heart of a cat tool. The second piece is the term base. And we're actually going to dedicate a video specifically on terminology and what a term base is. At first high level, it's a place, a database where you're storing terms. And we're going to have to look at what's the difference between a term and a translation memory. And we'll spend a bit more time on that. There's also lots of other dictionaries that can help you retrieve words, check what you've done before. So there's a lot of other help that you get apart from the translation memory and a term base. And there is actually machine translation as part of a cat tool typically. So with not only your translation, but with the help of machine translation, if you want to, you can translate in a different way. There's one more thing that I haven't put here on the board, which I think it's important. I'm going to kind of add a little box, which is sort of, I'm going to call it DTP. My writing there is not quite as neat and I ruined the really nice whiteboard. A cat tool also enables you to open a lot of different files. So at the end, this is another acronym, desktop publishing, DTP. You don't have to do a lot of work around the file itself. So you can take a PowerPoint, you can take a Word, you can take HTML, and a cat tool will open those files, extract the text, so you can work on the translation, which is kind of what a translator wants to do. You don't want to spend a lot of time adjusting text, realigning it. You want to translate and spend as much of your time as possible on the core task, which is translating. And a cat tool allows you to do that. It takes all this text out, you work on the text, and the beauty of it is that it will put all the text back in the original format. Of course, you're going to have to do some small adjustments because languages are tricky. Some languages are longer than others. From English to German, you might actually have an extra 30% length. And so you will have to fix it, but you don't have to align and adjust an entire document. So lots of things and different components in a cat tool. So let's introduce a translation memory and what it is. So first of all, the translation memory do different things. The first thing is storing the source sentence and their translation. What does it actually mean? It basically stores the phrase that you need to translate, and once you translate it yourself manually, it will store that translation. So that's kind of the key principle. The second thing of a translation memory is that it's something that you can use again and again. What does that mean? Once you have translated that sentence, when a similar sentence or that exact sentence appears again, the translation memory will retrieve it and gives you the translation. What's a term base? That's the other component I mentioned earlier. So let's have a look at what's a term base. they're kind of similar to a dictionary, but I think most terminology experts would not be happy if I used this definition of what's a term base and calling it a dictionary. I think we're going to have a video specifically on terminology so we can explain why it really isn't a dictionary. So, but at the high level, a term base, first of all, it stores single words or expressions. And I think this is already one of the differences with the dictionary, because if you think about it, in a dictionary, you tend to just store one word, whereas here, you can actually store an entire expression. And the second thing is that you can use it to dedicate words or expression for customers, organizations, so that when you do need to translate something in a very specific way, or in fact, if you don't need to translate something and you need to, for example, a brand that doesn't need translation, you can continue using the source text. So a term base is something that can help you deliver a more accurate and high quality translation after all, because it can remind you how some things are translated in a specific way. There's lots of other help when you're working with a CAT tool, and we talked about dictionaries. I think it's a bigger sense than just a dictionary, but just for simplicity, we kind of call them dictionaries, and they incorporate lots of different things. So there's various other ways that a CAT tool can use to help you translate. And the idea is that you have as much time as possible to think about how you translate something. And translating is really difficult. I'm Italian. I speak English as a second language, and my native language is Italian, but I'm not a translator. And it's so hard to take a phrase from English and turn it into a nice, authentic sounding sentence in my native language. And so we want to make sure, and a CAT tool helps you having as much time as possible on the thinking side of the translation piece. So the most monotonous and repetitive tasks we are helping you with. So for example, we are helping you with the meaning of some words. So a term base, for example, can help, or you can introduce your own specific words that you get reminders from. You have spell checking. Of course, you know your native language that you're translating in, but spell checking is always helpful, and it's a sort of monotonous, tedious task that we want to minimize the time you spend on it. We have a concept of auto-suggest, so we can take a lot of different resources and suggest them as you translate. Again, so often you might translate something and you think, I remember I translated this sentence before, or 2 or 3 words within a sentence. You have that feeling that you have translated something before, and a CAT tool can help you here. It can suggest how you might have translated things before. You might take that suggestion, you might scrap it, but the CAT tool keeps on giving you prompts on how you've done your previous work. And it can also retrieve segment fragments, which is a little bit of what I was saying now. And I kind of introduced 2 concepts there. What is a segment? And we almost need to look at specifically what's a segment, but it's like a phrase, and a fragment is a piece of that phrase. So all these different ways that a CAT tool has to help you is all about trying to reduce some of the more monotonous tasks, but also is trying to suggest more and more of what you've done before. So when you have done a great translation that you were really happy with, you can reuse it, and you don't have to take the same amount of time recreating exactly that same magical translation that perhaps you created a month before, 6 months before. So that's one of the key tools, key features that a CAT tool has. So we talked about machine translation. So what is machine translation? So let's have a little bit of a look at machine translation, which is one of the components of a CAT tool. But in many ways, it's like the opposite of a CAT tool. CAT tool is there to help you doing a translation. And machine translation can also be a tool that does a translation automatically from scratch. But in this case, it's about an additional tool that can help translating. So machine translation is automated translation carried out by a computer. So you're taking a piece of text, you stick it in, and without any help, a machine is going to do that translation. And you might think, well, why do I need to do that? I'm the translator. Well, there are times where you might translate a topic that you don't know, you might want to accelerate. There are some studies around how post-editing, so fixing machine translation, can be faster than doing a translation from scratch, especially on some type of content. So machine translation can be helpful in that respect. More recently, machine translation has improved its results. I think we've all seen terrible translations, especially with Asian languages. There are some very funny yet terrible translations that the computers can make. But there are things to make translation from the machine a bit better. And the usefulness of it is that fixing the same mistake time and time again that may be suggested from machine translation can be really boring. And again, the goal of a CAT tool is really making translation a little bit less monotonous. When you're translating some really difficult commercial, chemistry, patterns, some really difficult text, we want to give you the most time on doing the hard work, the heavy lifting of translation. So you don't want to fix the same mistake, for example, that a machine translation has suggested. And I've got some examples on Italian, but it would be kind of hard to explain unless you speak Italian. But, you know, little mistakes, really annoying that a machine translation does. But now machine translation can be trained and can learn from manual translation, so you don't get the same irritating mistakes time and time again. And there's the kind of two ways of training, and here we've got adaptive NT. So what's the difference between training an engine and adaptive NT? Typically, training an engine is something that you do in a batch. It's a big, lengthy process that requires thousands of words. You take tons of content, stick it into the machine translation, and that should improve the results. But there's now a newer technology, adaptive NT, that it's something easier to use. It's instant. It's it's not an extra task, but as you translate and you are connecting to machine translation, that machine translation can learn some of your specific ways of saying things. And so that improves the quality of the machine translation results. And again, the goal here is that machine translation will give you better help. So perhaps you are kind of trying to translate a sentence, it's sort of not coming out in your head. Machine translation can give you that prompt on how to translate those 3 or 4 words, and you can get a more accurate translation with some of the learning systems that are coming into play at the moment. So let's finish off. What are the benefits of CAT tool? There are various sides to it. The first one is quality. And I think this is one of the key things. Often we talk and we think about software as something to make you just quicker. But I think when it comes to a CAT tool, we've seen all the help that comes into play can help with quality. When you have done a great translation, that great translation can be reused. The fact that we can save a lot of time doing some of the more boring tasks can actually leave you with more time to do the more creative side of the translation, which is translating a complex sentence, a marketing, a slogan, or just a very difficult chemistry expression into translate those. So that's one of the key things where a CAT tool can help in terms of quality. Of course, it improves productivity. What is productivity? Basically, it's translating faster. So if you are using a CAT tool, you can translate faster. Some of your translations are reused and you can work in a quicker way. In some cases, this can be significant. Sometimes for some type of content, you might have 70, 80% of content translated before. Maybe it's a manual for a piece of product and there's a new version of that product, which isn't that different from the previous one. And you know, if you ever seen any of our other videos, we got the photo printer. Think about a photo printer manual. Between different models, there might not be that much of a difference. And so a CAT tool can really speed up the process of translating these different variations. There's, of course, the topic of scalability. The amount of content that is created, it's huge. And most people, companies, organizations, governments are struggling to translate all the content they create and in all the languages they want. And I have to bring it home for me, being in Italian, if you look at our company content and the fact that we're not translating everything into Italian, is just a sign of how hard and the difficulty of scale, the amount of content translated. And a CAT tool can make a significant difference in how much a company can translate. And finally, is connectivity. A CAT tool, one of the benefits is that you also have the ability to work by yourself on your computer, but you can also connect with others. And especially when there are large projects, you can actually share some of the assets, you can work with other people and make sure that your translation is used by other people, terminology shared across an entire team. So whether you are a translator where you're going to benefit specifically from the quality and the productivity enhancements, and hopefully doing less of the boring tasks and more of the fun task of translation. So whether you are a company or a translation agency who are trying to translate more or stay on top of your content, a CAT tool can really make a difference.
Okay, so that was a video describing about CAT tools. Okay, there's a lot of different types of CAT tools, a lot of different software available to use. Let me just point at Trados. Trados is the platform that supports the previous video. Trados here, and then WordFast. So I'm going to put this link onto the chat room so that you can browse and have a look at the information later if you want to. Go. Now it's out there. Now, if you watch the video carefully, the guy told us that it incorporates some sort of machine translation like Google Translate. But the thing is that even though these CAT tools, they incorporate some sort of machine translation function, but many translators don't like to use it. And let me tell you why. One basic reason is that most of the time is make mistakes, okay? Not most of the times, sometimes, and particularly if the language is quite complex. So let's try to do it here. Translate.google.com. Let's try translation from English to Indonesian to English. Okay, what happened? What is happening here? Feel free to open your mic.
I think it's translated literally. Literal translation.
Okay, so what's wrong with this literal translation?
So, for example, Chantiknia, I think it could be translated as her beauty, maybe. Is translated into an adjective rather than being a noun. Bukan, yes, Bukan is translated, yes. Chantiknia, Bukan, mine. And I think the meaning that needs to be delivered is that she's very beautiful. So yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, that is correct. So the message here, is a kind of expression in Indonesian to say that someone is very beautiful.
Yes.
Okay, cantiknya bukan main. Or if someone is really handsome, it's like gantengnya bukan main. Or someone is really naughty, nakalnya bukan main. So bukan main here we see. So bukan main is composed of two words, but here they don't behave as two separate words. So they correspond to one word in English, which is very. But that's not what the translation machine understands, what the machine translation understands. Yeah. So let me try to change this to another language, and if we can see, we try to see if we have a better translation with the same source text. So I think some of you speak Arabic. Yeah, so let's try Arabic.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't speak Arabic. I can read Quran, but I don't understand the meaning unless I read the tafsir. Okay, so what's happening here for those who speaks Arabic?
Yes. Me, I'm a speaker of Arabic, so Chantiknia bukan main translated into الجميل لا يلعب الجميل. This is an adjective as well. If we translated that literally, it would be the beautiful doesn't play. Something like that, yes. Which sounds very awkward.
Right, indeed. Let's do it in another language. Okay, so we have Arabic speaker. Let's see. Anyone speak Chinese? Say again.
We have Sadaf and Sarfaraz. Both of them, they speak Urdu.
Urdu, okay, Urdu. But Urdu is almost similar to Arabic, I think. It's also written in Arabic characters, I think. But let's do that. Let's do that for the sake of trials, and let's see, Urdu. Okay, what's going on in Urdu here?
Actually, I can't understand it myself if Sadaf and Sarfaraz are not available, because Khubsurat nahi khel raha hai. Khubsurat, this is an adjective as well. And the verb khel, it means playing literally. So it means like the beautiful doesn't play. Literal translation.
Exactly the same. Exactly the same, like the English translation. Yes. Let's do one more. Arabic, Urdu.
Sindhi.
Say again.
Sindhi. Sir,
sorry.
Translate Sindhi language.
Sorry, can you repeat? I cannot.
Because Sadaf and Sarfaraz speak Sindhi language, S-I-N-D-H-I language.
Oh, Hindi. Hindi. All right.
Not Hindi.
No, sir.
Sindhi.
Sindhi. Yes.
S-I-N-D-H-S-I-N.
Sindhi.
Yeah. Sir, this is totally different as previous Urdu. Here, It's talking about the खूबसूरत रंग दिन आए. So adjective indicates the game, but previously in Urdu, adjective was not indicating the game. So it's in Sindhi and totally different than also in Urdu.
Alrighty, okay, thank you. Now let's try using another local language in Indonesia. Well, let's try Javanese, not Japanese. This one. Does anyone speak Javanese other than me? No? Yeah, so this one, ayu means beautiful, ora means not, and muter means like to run round. So yeah, this is a very deviant translation. It does not really communicate this. Let me try to ask Nurul and Anisia. Nurul and Anisia, or maybe Francisca as well. What languages other than Indonesian and English that you speak?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
It's Anisia. So I also speak my mother language, which is Tetun.
Tetun. Okay, let's see if we have Tetun here. Tetun. Oh, unfortunately, I think Tetun is not here yet. Apologize for that. Yeah, we in corpus linguistics or in natural language processing, we refer to these languages as under-resourced language. So language whose resources are not pretty much available. Yeah, so that's why it's not present here. Right, so let's get back to the translation here. The Africans. Anyone speak Africans? Now let's try to change this. Let's start to simplify this, okay? Not use phrasal expression, yeah, but use another simplified version.
I think this is accurate, right? But because this is very simple, so when translated, they didn't need to add like more linguistic fact elements, so it's translated accurately. I think cantik sekali, ayu
Yes.
banget.
Ayu banget. So banget is an intensifier. Yeah, so cantik sekali is ayu, sekali is banget. So yeah, it's very smart. So let's try. I think in Arabic it would translate perhaps
yes, this
well.
is right.
Yeah.
جميل للغة.
And also in Sindhi, yeah, maybe this is also correct. So anyway, the thing with the machine translation is that we cannot give an input which is too complicated. So simplify the input and perhaps the machine will understand better and translates better. So how it works, how machine translation works, is that it uses a database, yeah, which is parallel corpus. So it has already translated text, and the computer and the machine learns, yeah, from the database, and it figure out rules and how to translate best in that language. Yeah, so we will talk about that if we are in corpus linguistics or natural language processing class later. Okay. So yeah, enough for that. Yeah, and let's continue with the other video. Yeah. What is translation memory? So let me copy this and add to the, hang on, to the material, list of materials that we have.
Selama gap year ini, aku banyak menggunakan Grammarly untuk menulis personal statement yang nanti akan aku gunakan
Sorry
untuk
for
mendaftar
the,
kuliah.
background.
Grammarly juga cocok bagi teman-teman yang banyak dapat tugas bahasa Inggris atau pengen daftar ke opportunities.
So I'm going to put this into classwork so that everyone can see later. Translation memory. And perhaps the other one as well, terminology management. Oops, sorry, seems to close it accidentally. Copy this. There, and one.
Ciao, I'm Massimo from STL, and today I'm going to talk about terminology management.
So we are not yet in terminology. So talking about terminology, this is, I think, is one of the challenges in translation, because some words have different meaning in specialized discipline. So, for instance, how would you define alien? Alien, A-L-I-E-N. Look.
Like creatures that doesn't belong to Earth, maybe coming from space.
So creatures from outer space, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but alien in legal terminology means like foreigners, expatriate. So if you are not an Indonesian, yeah, and you come to Indonesia as a tourist or as a student, but you're not the citizen of Indonesia, then you are an alien. Okay, so that doesn't mean that you are from outer space. It simply said that you are not from Indonesia. Yeah, you're a foreigner, you're an expatriate. And also concrete. Concrete, in general, concrete means like real, like you can touch, you can see. Yeah. So it's the opposite of abstract. But in different discipline, like in engineering, concrete is some kind of substance, yeah, that you make to hardened substance, like to make roads or streets. Okay, Sarfaraz type something in Sindhi we called ajnabi. Okay, yes, okay. Yeah, thank you for that. So my point is that even though I am a native speaker of Indonesian, I'm not familiar with all terminologies. Okay, so if someone asks me, to translate a legal document, it might need to take a while, yeah, to have a look at the list of legal terminologies in Indonesia, as I don't really master the terminologies. So that's why practical translators, not all of them come from language learning background. Not all of them are linguists by discipline. Well, some of them are engineers, some of them are paralegal. Okay, and they usually specialize, yeah, in some types of text. So if you go to pros.com, so here is another information. If you don't know any, but maybe if you know it already, just forget about it. If you go to pros.com, this is a platform for a practical translator. Yeah, so translators really do it for life. So you can find, yeah, so for instance, let's see, you want to find a translator from Turkish to English. Yeah, so there you go. You have the list of translators. Yeah. This is just one platform. There is also another platform like Translator Cafe, yeah, but this is the platform that I'm aware of. And the good thing about this is that you can ask questions. So for instance, if I have a job in translating a legal text and I have a terminology that I don't really understand or that I hesitate about finding the actual translation, yeah, you can always ask. Let me give you a link to that. I think I already have it opened somewhere. There you go. This one. So in this case, yeah, someone asked a question. Teman-teman tolongin dong, ya, ini konteksnya welding consumable. So the target word is consumable. Yeah. And people offers some answers, okay? Like here, you can also see their conversation. And this is I think this is the best answer. Yeah, so that's why here it says consumable bahan habis pakai. So if you're not familiar with engineering, I think it's pretty difficult to translate consumable in Indonesian if you're not familiar. Yeah. So you can always ask questions pros.com. That's the good thing about this. Okay. This platform. Right, so let's move on. Well, we only have 15 minutes left. Let's go to translation memory. Yeah.
Ciao, I'm Massimo from SDL, and today I'm here to talk about a translation memory. So what is a translation memory? It's a language pair database that stores segments of text which have been previously translated so they can be recalled for later use. I don't know how much sense this made to you, so we're gonna try to explain all of this. Few keywords here, database, hopefully you know what that is, but it's a place where things get stored. We are gonna talk about segments, obviously text, and recalling, so bringing that back. And I'm explaining this because a lot of the people in this industry are not English speakers, native English speakers, and so we'll kind of just make sure that our terminology is as clear as possible. What is a segment? So this is a question that comes up, and especially if you're new to the industry, new to translation, you might actually not know what a segment is. You know, you might figure it out. So in a way, a segment can be different things, and this is what gets stored inside the translation memory. It could be a sentence, and this is what you probably relate the most with. It could be a phrase. And actually, there's not much difference from a sentence and a phrase. I think it's a bit semantics, it's kind of terminology, what word works best for you. It could be a paragraph. And actually, a paragraph is a little bit different than a sentence. Typically, a paragraph could be a combination of sentences. And traditionally, in the translation memory, you store these two, sentences and phrases. You can also choose to store entire paragraphs, but obviously the more you store, the harder it is to match in the future. And we're going to look a little bit more what that means. But remember that kind of thought of storing kind of sentences. So after a full stop, after a semicolon, for example. But perhaps if you have a very long paragraph with 3 phrases or sentences inside, you can store those, but you might decide not to do that. And headings, of course, a title, the beginning of a document, that is also what gets stored. So in essence, a segment is a finite pieces of words, a set of words that get stored into a translation memory. The second piece is, what is a translation unit? A translation memory is made up of translation units. And sometimes people call this a TU, translation unit. So what's a translation unit? Is in essence is the building block of a translation memory. So the translation memory stores the source text, so what you gotta translate, and the translation of that sentence. So typically, if you look at a translation memory, you'll find many translation units. And each translation unit is going to be, hello, I'm Massimo. Ciao, sono Massimo. So you have the English and its translation. That's what a translation unit is. And what then is going to happen is that the translation memory can search all these translation units, and as you translate, it will find similar translations that you've made before for a specific sentence and suggest them to you as translations. So you might wonder, how does this help? So it kind of helps in many different ways. So the classic is that you never have to translate the same sentence again. So there's different benefits to it. You might kind of see immediately what's the benefit of not having to translate the same sentence again. First of all, to retranslate the same things, it's boring, so you don't have to do it again. Sometimes you have to watch it. Sometimes you have translated something and you do need to actually have a different translation because of different context. So you always need to check those translations. But in essence, when you translated something, you don't want to translate it again. It does save you time, but also it's about quality. You might have spent a lot of time translating a sentence and getting it just right. Not just right for you, but also you might have a client. There might be somebody else who reviewed that translation, and at the end of the process, everybody was 100% happy with that translation. You want to make sure that that translation is the one that gets used again. So it's about quality and consistency and making sure that the best translation is reused again and again. Obviously, all of these translations get stored for future use. So you're building an asset, in essence. You're building this database made out of translation units, which contain all your previous sentence that you translated. And it's something you build for future use. There are people who've been building millions of words. It's not a joke. There's translators who have 1 million translation units. Can you imagine? And they can reuse them, so you can save them a lot of time and also ensuring consistency and quality. One of the nice things about a translation memory is the more you add, the more you can recall. And at the end of the day, the interesting piece is that you're actually not doing more work. You're translating as you were translating before. The difference is that you're storing that translation for the future. And it just kind of happens automatically. It's really quite easy to add and build a translation memory. It can get big pretty quickly. If you think that a typical translator translates 2,000 words a day, that's what the industry sort of agrees on translating new words. Of course, it can be a lot less than that. If you have a slogan, a marketing slogan to translate of 10 words, it might actually take you half a day to translate that slogan. But you know, typical content, commercial content, instruction manuals, technical documentation, the average is 2,000 words a day. Those are 2,000 words a day that you can store in the database for future use. So it does help you translate faster because you have stored all of this. But I really want to stress that is the speed of that it offers you is also very much about giving you more time for when you are translating that new content so that you can create the best possible translation for it. And of course, it takes away the monotony of translating the same sentence again and again. For one marketing slogan, there could be one document where the same sentence is repeated hundreds of times. And so that's where a translation memory can really make a difference. So lots of information so far, translation, segments, units, and so on. But I think hopefully you got the concept of having your translation stored in translation units. But how does it all work? So once you get your new text to translate, a cat tool, and we have a video on a cat tool, is going to look at your entire database, look at all those translation units, and trying to find something that matches. And it happens instantly. It's very, very quick. So you're not sitting there waiting for the translation memory to find a translation. It's pretty much instant. So I just use the word match. And this is kind of a bit of the essence of a translation memory. What it's trying to do is trying to match the new sentence you have to translate with the sentences you translated before. And different things can happen. So there are 4 types of matches. So let's look at them. So the first one is context match. So this is the highest quality match. This is where something that you have translated before, but not only you translated that sentence, but the translation memory can recognize that you translate that sentence and the sentences around it. So in that case, the system can say, not only I translated this before, but what's around it is also the same. So that's a context match, because the chances are that that is going to be a really good match. The second match is the 100% match. This is something that you might hear quite a lot in this industry. So this is the more traditional match. It's something you translated before in the same format as well. You know, if something was bold, needs to also be bold, or you might have to fix the formatting, for example. And so that's the 100% match. In this case, the context is not taken into consideration. So it's just looking at that sentence. And if what's around it is not the same, the system will just say, this is a 100% match. Typically, you need to check a 100% match because there might be surprises. And if any of you speaks different languages, masculine, feminine, maybe something was a heading, something was in the middle of a sentence, you might have actually need to use different translations. And that's why the 100% match is going to be pretty accurate, but you do need to cast an eye on a 100% match. Then we go down a level to what we call a fuzzy match. And in fact, the industry calls a fuzzy match. So that's something below a 100% match. Typically, you might hear about 70, 80, 90, 99, 95% match. So that's clearly a sentence which is similar but not identical. And the differences could be it could be a word different, it could be a formatting difference. So various little things, which means that the translation memory will suggest that translation, and then you can fix that translation, add a missing word, replace a word, restructure a little bit that sentence to make it work. One of the newest matches is the fragment match. So, you know, we talked about paragraphs and sentences and so on. So within a sentence, there might be fragments. So you might have a sentence with 10 words, but there might 3 or 4 words, and those are the ones that repeat themselves. So you might be translating an entire sentence, and you might have that feeling that you translated those 3 or 4 words. A fragment match will look for those pieces and say, you know, you actually did translate those 4 words. and here's how you did translate those 4 words. And then you can decide whether to use them or not. You know, when I said earlier, the kind of length of the sentence and the paragraphs, when you look at this, obviously, the bigger the sentence, if you have a sentence that long with basically long wordings, getting a match, it might be a little bit harder. If you are in a situation where you have short sentences, it's easier to get a match. The statistics are kind of in your favor. So that's why typically what you store is sentences. Even if there's an entire paragraph with 3 sentences, you kind of store at the individual phrase sentence level rather than an entire paragraph. So you kind of give yourself a better chance to get a match. So one question that gets asked often is, can I work with more than one translation memory at the same time? So why would people ask that? So over the years, I've seen all sorts of different approaches. People might store everything they translate, no matter what client, what is it marketing, is it legal, and everything goes into translation memory, and you kind of work from there. But other people create different translation memories for different clients, different type of content. But you might still want to be able to use them all because you never know where a match might come from. So of course, you can create as many translation memories as you like and use them all at the same time. And in fact, a CAT tool can be quite smart and prioritize one translation memory versus another. So if you've got a marketing translation memory and you're translating a marketing document, but you might also have the instruction manual from the same client, you might actually turn them both on because you might actually find some matches from both. But the marketing translation memory is the one that has got top priority over perhaps the technical documentation. When you're starting with translation memory, I told you that you can build it pretty fast. You know, you start translating your 2,000 new words a day and the translation memory will build up. But you might have been a translator for quite some time and you might have a bunch of documents that you want to import in the translation memory. So can you actually make a translation memory from your previous work? And the answer is that you can. So there is a tool called Alignment. It's a tool, a feature, a functionality that actually allows you to create a translation memory from your existing translation. So you might have a document in English, a document in Italian, and you translated them manually. You can take those documents and import them into a translation memory. And what you're doing, you're aligning them. You're trying to align the English sentences with the Italian sentences. So you're gonna get with a side-by-side view where you see all these sentences, and you know languages are tricky. So maybe 3 English sentences turn into a 1 long Italian sentence. Coming from Italy, I know I used to have to chop my sentences more. When I moved to the UK, my sentences were that long. I had to really kind of force myself to be a bit shorter. So with alignment, you actually can sort of manipulate and try to align all the English with the Italian in my case, or whatever language pair. One good point of translation memory that it can store any language. There is no constraint. Any language can be imported and worked with a translation memory. So no matter what language combination you translate in, everything can be imported in a translation memory. So hopefully you got a bit of a sense of what a translation memory is, what's inside. You hopefully knows what now is a segment, how all of that works together to give you suggestions as you translate. And one of the nice things of translation memory is that even if you're starting from scratch, either you build it pretty quickly as soon as you start doing your first translation, or you could even import what you've done before. So you create this asset that is going to last you for the future.
Okay, so that's about the translation memory. There is one more video, which is about the terminology management, actually, but we don't have time, so we have only a few minutes before the end of this class. About translation memory, one of the good things about having translation memory in your CAT tool is that it can tell you if you have already translated the same thing. So let me explain this to you by my experience. So one time I translated a document, and like 6 or 7 months after, I got another client who gave me the same document to translate. If not because of the translation memory, I would have translated it from scratch. But because of the translation memory activated in my CAT tool, it told me that, hey, you have already translated. It seems like you have already translated the same document before. So I just have a look at the document. It's not exactly the same. It's like 95 or 97% the same. So I just need to replace some dates, proper names, etc. Nothing difficult. And the project which I did initially, which took me like I think like 2 weeks to translate, I can just finish it by just less than 10 minutes. So that really helped you to translate faster, no sweat, with the same amount of money that I received. Okay, so that's the perk of having translation memory in your CAT tool. All right, we are scheduled to end this session at 2:40. Yeah, and we still have a few minutes. I'm going to distribute the QR code in the chat room. So feel free to mark yourself in. Here comes the QR code. And here comes the link, just in case you cannot scan the QR code. And yeah, if you have any problem in scanning the QR code, just let me know and I'll do it manually from here. And I'm available also to take questions.
Hello, sir.
Yes. Waalaikumsalam.
Oh, sir, can you please mark my attendance?
Say again, sorry.
I said, can you please mark my attendance? I haven't got mine.
Can you scan the code? Go to the chat room.
Oh, no, sir. I haven't scanned the code because I haven't any other device.
Okay. What's your name?
Sadaf.
Sadaf.
Yes, sir.
Okay, done.
Thank you, sir.
No worries. Anyone else having problems marking yourself in? Or you have any question about the material today? Okay, no questions so far. Good, good. Well, there are 2 people who have not marked themselves in. I think Nan Ingyin Pugh is not here. But Nurul, I think Nurul is here. Nurul, do you have any problems scanning the QR code?
I just scanned the QR code, sir.
Okay, yeah, I can see that now. Great. So that much. If there is no question, yeah, we have 3 minutes. I'll keep the meeting open, but yeah, if you have, if you want to leave this meeting, that's okay. And I think I'm going to see you at 3 for the next class. Let me check. I think. Yeah, materials development for language teaching. Yeah. We'll begin at 3. So that's in, I think, in 22 minutes or so. Okay. So yeah, thank you for attending the session today. You have registered to my Google Classroom. You have joined my Google Classroom. Watch the space. I'm going to notify you everything from Google Classroom. Okay. So you can leave the meeting, and see you in another 22 minutes or so.
Thank you so much.
No worries.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
No worries. Yeah, thank you very much for attending the session.